Hi builders! Imagine never needing an analyst or even yourself to search through massive databases and run multiple queries to get quick insights on your data. Sounds futuristic, right? Well, it's here already, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can search and filter production-grade databases with nothing but your voice, thanks to an AI SQL agent which is integrated right into Telegram. Okay, and what I have here on the screen is a platform that allows me to host these production-grade databases, which I'll talk about later in the video. So in this database, I have 4 tables. This first table contains information about alcoholic drink, everything about their description, their price, the size, the vendor name. The second table contains information about tech products. Okay, these are sales from September 2019 in this case. The third table contains food store sales in the US. Here are the columns. So this one has a lot of columns. And then we have the last one, which is about clothes, specific about Zara products. Cool. So because I'm lazy and I don't want to do the searches myself, or I don't want to push these into a Google Sheet or an Excel file to then do some filtering and whatnot, or have to do any queries using SQL inside here, what I'm going to do is chat to my SQL agent on Telegram. So first of all, we're going to ask some stuff about the alcoholic drinks table. So here I have my phone. I opened Telegram on my phone and then I shared Telegram here so you can see the responses from the agent. What vendor has the most expensive drinks? Okay, so now the agent is going to do its thing and search an answer for me. It's going to write that SQL and then reply with an answer. There you go. So the vendor with the most expensive drink is Campari America, and their most expensive drink is valued at $14,000. Okay, now let's ask questions about the second table. So let's say, what purchase address has bought the most AAA batteries? Okay, so the purchase address that bought the most AAA batteries was this one in Los Angeles. It purchased a total of 6 packs of AAA batteries during the period covered by the data. Amazing. Okay, let's ask now about this table, which contains a lot of columns. And we're going to go now for a more complex query for you to understand the power of SQL. So what region has the biggest combined margins in the US stores table? The region with the biggest combined margins in the US stores table is the central region, with a combined margin of 146,252. Okay, and then it even ranked me the regions with the highest combined margins. Why was this query important? Well, this is because it had to do 2 things. It had to first of all search through the margins column, but also add them together, which is what SQL is great at. So SQL is not only great at extracting information accurately from these tables, but also at manipulating the tables, doing all the filtering, adding, subtracting data, ranking the data to then get the best answer possible given your query. So this is a power of SQL. And in this case, the ability for the agent to write SQL to search through these tables. Okay, so enough talk. Now let's go through another example. So let's go through the Zara products. Give me the 5 cheapest products for men. Okay, I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna send that message. There you go. These are the 5 cheapest products. And there you go. Actually, let's go back to the US food store table now that I want to add some stuff here. Okay, so let's ask the following. Let me grab the phone and let's say, can you calculate the profit margin for each store and rank them from highest to lowest? Also, show the ratio of total expenses to total sales for each store. And I'm mentioning the US food store sales table. Just mentioning that table, just so that it doesn't, because we're talking about the Zara products table. There you go. So based on the data from the US food store tables, here are the top 5 stores ranked by the profit margin along with the expense to sales ratio. And then it gave me a little report description, if you may. This could go on a report, which it could happen, right? I could ask it to, I could connect this SQL agent to another agent that creates reports. It could share these reports to my team via email, for example. So there's a lot of cool use cases for this. But the most important thing is that the stuff that it did. So it calculated the ratio. It got the profit margin by percentage as well, which is not available directly on the tables. So it had to manipulate the columns and so on, and then also rank them, alongside other manipulations of the tables. So this is a great example of what SQL is able to do. Okay, so hopefully from this demo, you got a good understanding on what you're able to do with the SQL agent, and also the power of talking to the SQL agent via audio. So here is the SQL agent, but before we go to the build, I want to go through a little presentation. Okay, so let's clarify a couple things. First of all, I want you to understand what SQL is. SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and this is the standard language for managing and querying relational databases. What is a relational database, Frank? Well, let's put the example of the tables that you saw before. Let's say one of the tables has product IDs, but it only talks about financial information. Then you have a second table that also has those same product IDs, but talks about advertising strategies, let's say, or advertising metrics. Well, those two tables are related because both of them have the product IDs. So now with one product ID, I can query two different tables. That is essentially what a relational database is in a nutshell. They can be linked by product IDs or they can be linked by other things, but I don't want to get too deep into that. So SQL is great for searching through large databases efficiently. We can do very specific search with it, as you saw in the demo. And what is a SQL agent then? Well, this falls under the standard agent definition. So an agent is essentially a language model that is able to reason and iterate based on an observation, and also has access to tools. In this case, the tool is this ability to write SQL. So it dynamically generates SQL queries from natural language. In this case, it was the audio that I sent, and it's able to directly interact with the databases with the SQL, unlike API calls. API calls that I would make to Google Sheets, for example, to retrieve some information from it, right? Writing SQL to query a database is different from making an API call. Writing SQL is much more accurate and it's more efficient, it's quicker. And yeah, just to restate on the other point is that it's able to iterate to refine data search if the results are not good enough. What does this mean? Well, let's say I give it a query and then it generates SQL to do that search. It is possible that the SQL that it writes the first time is not going to be amazing. So it's going to retrieve a bad result from that query. What it's going to do is it's going to see that result and it's going to say, okay, how do I improve the SQL query that I sent so that I can get a better result? And it's going to keep iterating until it then feels that it has good result from that query. And the thing with agents is that also you can set the max number of iterations, the max number of times that it's going to go through a loop to improve on whatever it's doing, not only for SQL agents, but agents in general. So SQL databases and vector stores. It's also good to understand the difference between them. So SQL databases are great for storing structured data, right? Structured data is essentially anything regarding numbers, strings. Strings is a bit ambiguous because you also have text here. I'll explain now a bit of the difference. Dates and floats. Floats is just a fancy number for, 1.76. That's a float. Any number with a decimal, if you may. So it's great for structured data. You see it in transactional systems such as e-commerce, banking, CRMs, right? Just a lot of numbers going on. And these are great for doing precise filtering, aggregation, joins of data. And the difference with these two is that the vector store, right? The SQL databases are great for searching something, retrieving it, or manipulating columns in order to do some calculations or do rankings and whatnot. The vector store in the other case is, a complete different beast. First of all, we are storing unstructured data such as text, images, and audio. And vector stores are great because we can do similarity search. We can find the relationships between words, right? So we can store data about this dog, right? And then we can ask, what color is the dog? The color of the dog is brown. Well, it's going to do this much better within a vector store than it's going to do at a SQL database. So it's great for doing semantic search, as I just showed you with the example of the dog, and recommendations. Maybe you're in Spotify or you're in some other software and you need to pull up recommendations to that user based on the data that they have about you already. So that's great. Then we're going to go through this very briefly. SQL agents versus tool agents, right? I'm going to show you now on an n8n that I'm using a SQL agent. There's been other examples in YouTube. There's not many out there, but there's some videos that use a tools agent instead to, search for data in a platform, such as Google Sheet or NoCodeDB, which I'm going to explain in a bit. But essentially with the tools agent, we're triggering tools via API calls, right? HTTP requests, or however you want to call it. So there are some differences because first of all, tools are not great at writing SQL. That's first of all, and that makes most of the difference. And another difference is that with SQL Agent, we're able to do the manipulations with the data that, we're not able to do with the tools agent, because it's basically most of the differences here are because of the fact that it doesn't have the ability to generate SQL properly. So, in turn, it's more precise with the queries because of the way it connects to the databases, right? It connects directly and not via an API. And one other difference as well, which is, I think, one of the main ones, is that it can only query one table or resource at a time, the tools agent. So I saw some other videos that it searches via API calls, let's say, or, there's also access to Supabase as a tool, but you're only able to select individual tables. Maybe you can select multiple tables, but you need additional logic or automations to add. Maybe it's perhaps some Python code to be able to perform that, right? But the SQL agent is able to perform that autonomously, right? Without me having to hard code anything. And then another one is that, as explained before, it requires manual workflows to perhaps perform operations like filtering and combining data. So now these are the places where we're storing the data. So first of all, we have Supabase, which is what we're going to use today. I love it because it's open source, but most importantly, it's because you can use it for other stuff apart from the use case that we're giving it today. We can do authentication, we could do APIs, a lot of that stuff. And many developers are using it for production to build really sophisticated applications. What about no-code databases, which I just recently saw? They're great because you're able to set up a project or a proof of concept really quick, but I wouldn't recommend it for long-term use, let's say with clients, unless it's, they're really small databases, really small files, and they're for personal use. Then I wouldn't mind using a no-code DB, right? Because it's just so quick to set up. But yeah, the problem is that it has an abstraction layer. You're not able to see the SQL queries, right? You're using kind of a search language that they have added, similar to how you filter on Google Sheets, for example, and all that stuff. You can do query on some of them on SQL queries, but they're available by paying and whatnot. But anyways, it's a lot of hassle at the end of the day using these for no code, and you're better off sticking with Supabase if you're going to build robust applications. As I said, this is just to reinstate one more time. I'm not saying that this is bad. I'm just saying that this is great for a specific use case, which is for setting up stuff quick. And then again, obviously, this is a bit more of a hassle to set up. You're going to see now. But anyways, that's it. So now let's go on to the demo. I'm going to show you how to build it. All right, let's set up this workflow now. So in order to chat with the SQL agent, we need this Telegram trigger. And in order to set this up properly, first of all, the trigger is going to be a message. Second of all, we need to create a Telegram bot, and we're going to grab an access token from that Telegram bot that we made. Okay, how do we make this bot? Well, you're going to access this bot that creates bots. Yes, you heard me right. I'll be dropping this link down below in the description or similar. So whenever you're here, just open the Telegram app via the button and you're going to do /start. You'll be presented with these commands, and then you're going to do /new bot. Okay, so choose a name that is valid, and then you'll receive a message and you will have this token to access the HTTP API. So you're going to copy that token, and then you are going to paste it here. Make sure you hit save, and then you receive this message. Perfect. That's the trigger set up. And now we are going to reroute the message types. So it might be that we receive an audio or a text. Okay, I think we can receive images on Telegram. I'm not sure, but it could be. But for now, it's just audio and text. If we receive an audio message, we're going to go through this route in order to grab the file ID from that audio message and then transcribe it to text, so that then it can be parsed by the AI agent effectively. Okay, so let's trigger the workflow so that I let you know what I mean, and you can see it in detail. Okay, so let's send a random audio. Search for me the top products from Zara. Okay, whatever. Just as a note, it needs to be a query to the database directly. If you say hi or you do some conversation with it, it's not going to reply to you properly. What you could do is add a conversational agent behind that then triggers this AI agent. Well, maybe not conversational agent, maybe you want to add a tools agent and then have this AI agent as a tool that it can call. But for now, you're only able to make queries to it. Okay, so this is done. And let's see. So let's hit this. And you see that we're grabbing the file ID so that we can then transcribe it. Okay, well, actually this node is getting that file. We're downloading it, okay, into the n8n server. and then we're sending it to OpenAI to convert it to text. Perfect. And then we're receiving it here as text, as JSON.text, and then we are performing the query, okay? Great. So if it's instead of an audio, instead of the audio route with going through the text route, we need to do the following. Over here, we have it as JSON.message.text, okay? We need to convert this to JSON.text, okay? We need to remove this message part so that the two routes, both of the routes are named JSON.text, right? So that we can, whatever route the workflow is going through, at the end of it, it's always JSON.text, okay? So that's why we're making this here. If we're not going to put this, then this is going to be JSON.message.text. It's not going to be recorded here. This is really important. Then we're going to go on to the AI agent itself. So this is going to be the important part of it. So we're going to choose obviously a SQL agent. We're going to choose a Postgres database. That's what we're doing on Supabase at the moment. Supabase is the tool, the database platform that we're using to store the files that I showed you before. Another credentials. So this is important. So how do you get these credentials? So we're going to go here. You are going to have to go to Supabase, create a project if you don't have one. And I'll show you how to set this up right now. So let's go here. You're going to go ahead and create a new project, okay? I have put the details of creating a project and setting up a project and, setting up the connection to Supabase in another video. So, you can watch that other video. I'll put it either here in the video, as a card or in the description below. But once you create a new project, then you are going to be able to create some tables. So before you do, we're going to complete this, okay? Where do you find this information? Okay, once you created the project, slightly before finishing the creation of the project, you are going to have to put in a password, okay? Make sure you write that password somewhere. Okay, once you've done that, we're going to go to connect, okay? If you see here, it's really small there. Hit connect. And on the connection string, you're going to go down and go into this transaction pooler thing, okay? So here are all the details that you need. So host is this host here. Let's put this here. The port is the port below here, right down here. Then we have the database. The database is Postgres. It's a Postgres database, right? This is the dialect of SQL, just to be correct with it. So database Postgres, and then the user is this one here. And then the password is what I mentioned you before. It's the password that you had to put in when creating the project. So make sure you put that there and then leave this as it is, and then leave this as it is as well. Leave everything else as it is. Then connect. And once you've done that, now we are going to add some tables to the database, okay? So how do we create all this? Well, the easy way is by using the SQL Editor. Because if you do it, if you create a table the manual way, you're gonna have to do all this setup and it's a bit long, Instead, you can use AI to help you out. So let me show you. Bring this here because I'm gonna use this. Okay, so there's this prompt that I use in order to create the SQL script, the SQL snippet that you have to place here. So the data sets that I got were from Kaggle. So feel free to use a sample database or bring your own files. But remember, they need to be CSV files, okay, as you see here. So make sure they are that. Okay, so once you have that, then you are going to get the file that you want to upload. So in this case, I'm going to upload one of these here. So let's go here. Let's put in this prompt. I'll leave this in the description as well. Paste that there. And then you're going to paste the file. So let's do Amazon CSV. Let's hit enter. Basically, the reason I am telling you to get this prompt is because there's a couple things that you need to do to add in the prompt, such as placing everything as text and adding quotation marks as well. You'll see now what I mean. So, okay, we have this. Perfect. Let's grab that. Let's place it here. So this is in the SQL Editor. And now I can press run, but before I do, I'm just going to explain you what is going on. So it could be the case, at least with what happened to me on Kaggle, is that the data sets are not clean. So ideally, you want them to be what the actual data types are. So the actual price would be an integer. So you put here int, right, as follows, right? But the problem is, at least for what happened with me, is that in Kaggle, the data is not clean. So there's stuff missing around and whatnot. So, the safe thing is to convert everything to text. And also you need to have a unique ID, primary key, and also add quotation marks around the names of the columns. But anyways, if I told you, if you have the prompt and then you add the file on ChatGPT and then, press enter, you should get this. So that should be fine for you. Press run, success, no rows returned down here. And you should have the table. So your table name in this case. Why is that? Well, it's because we create a table with the name, your table name. So let's change that. So let's say my data is about, I don't know, is it about Amazon data? So Amazon data, make sure that the name of the table is something meaningful and is something that describes the data, because then the agent, the SQL agent, will better understand what table to use based on your query. So Amazon data, let's create a new table. So there we go. And now we have this Amazon data table. Okay, we currently have no data there. We just defined the columns and whatnot. So let's drag that right here. So right here, amazon.csv. Okay, cool. Everything should look fine, no errors. And let's import the data. Perfect. So now the data is in here and it should be directly accessible by the SQL agent already. So we set up the credential for Postgres and all that, and then we're defining the prompt below. So make sure this is JSON.text. And then we have written a prompt here so that it enhances the accuracy of the SQL queries. Cool. So that's done. Then we set the chat model. We're going to put a low sampling temperature. Why are we putting a low sampling temperature? Because this application requires it to have a low sampling temperature. So high sampling temperatures are for creative tasks where we can allow the language model to get a bit creative, to be a bit loose with the generation. But when it's generating SQL to retrieve data, we want this to be, as low as possible. I put 0.2 instead of just 0, because why not? But yeah, a low number essentially. So there you go. And now we're going to set up the window buffer memory. The key here is going to come from Telegram trigger at the start. Let's put schema. So it's Telegram trigger. Where is it? Telegram trigger item.message.chat ID. So it's going to be the chat ID. So make sure to place that there. And you can set your context length to be 8, to be 10, whatever you feel is best for you. Okay, great. And now we are going to set this up. So the chat ID, once again, is the same as the buffer, before. This is going to come from the same place. So Telegram trigger, chat ID right here. And then the text is going to be JSON.output because it's coming anyways from this previous node. So that's why we can put just JSON.output without mentioning the name of the node. So there we go. So that's that. Leave everything as it is. Operation, of course, send message. We're sending a message back to the Telegram app, and obviously set your credentials, right? The credentials are the same as the starting node. So there you go. And one thing that you might want to do is, this is going to be like this as a default, add a field, append n8n attribution, and remove it. Because if you don't, then the message that you receive from the agent is going to have a little n8n message saying this message was made by n8n. So maybe you don't want that. There you go. So I think that's pretty much it. All right. So that's pretty much the end of this video. I tried to make this video as short as possible while providing as much value as possible. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. I would appreciate it a lot and it really helps the channel. And if you did not like the video for some reason, please let me know why in the comments below. Okay. If you have any other video suggestions for future videos, please also let me know down in the comments below. Cool. I'm going to go grab some food because I'm getting hungry. So I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.